Welcome to the Discover Your Future series, where we are inspiring and meeting incredible professionals from various industries to give you a glimpse of what your future could hold. Now, in each episode, as you've seen, we've had loads of incredible guests, and today is probably one of the most special. I can't be biased, but he used to be my boss at a previous organization, and he's had the most incredible journey, overcoming diversity challenges, and is now the CEO at an incredible company. And of course, he's going to be sharing lots of really, really useful nuggets and bits of advice for all of you who are eager to follow your dreams and explore different career paths. So without further ado, Marques, it's great to have you on today. And could you please introduce yourself, your job title, and the industry that you work in?
Okay, Rashad, well, thank you. I appreciate you giving me some time, and congratulations on your role at TutorHives. So my name is Marques McCammon. I am the president of Karma Automotive. So Karma Automotive is an ultra-luxury electric and hybrid electric vehicle manufacturer in Southern California. So I joined the company in March of this year, and I have full charge of the business for all of our operations in the US and globally.
That's awesome. And thank you, Marques, for the time, as always. Now, how did you discover your passion to go down the automotive, the transport sector, and follow this career?
Well, so I was always interested in transportation. So when I was a kid, the space shuttle was a big thing, right? Space shuttles were going up into space. We used to watch them in school. They'd bring us into the library so we could watch the shuttles go up. So at first I thought I wanted to be an aerospace engineer. And I started off my training in college for mechanical engineering with that goal in mind. I also always had a desire or an interest in automotive because my grandfather was a mechanic. He was a Chrysler mechanic in a small town in Virginia. And he was known throughout that small town as being the guy that could hot rod anything. He was the guy who tuned all the police cruisers. He was the guy that did all the race cars in the area. And he had this whole collection of golden wrenches that I was not supposed to touch, but I would always go find and play with. So those were the two things that I had a passion for. When I got into college, into university, in my professional life, I got the opportunity to intern in both areas, and I found that I really liked the velocity of the automotive industry, and I fell in love with stories of guys like Carroll Shelby, the famed American race driver and race engineer, and then I kind of developed a desire to want to be like him, right? I wanted to build high performance cars. I wanted to build race vehicles, and I wanted to be in a position with the auto industry where I could make an impact in my community. When I was young, I lived in New York, and there were some areas of New York that I lived in that most people would not have wanted to travel at those times, right? So neighborhoods where there were a lot of boarded up buildings and fairly low income. And I always imagined that if I had this great business, making these really hot cars, all the guys in my neighborhood would get excited. I could make jobs and I could make my city that much more productive. So that's kind of where all the drive came from. And I've just been chasing that dream ever since.
And you still are chasing it, aren't you? I didn't realize you were an aerospace driver. So that was me as well. So I actually wanted to go down the aerospace, then moved into the race, and then it's the decarbonized, and then obviously the digital. So didn't even realize that. So that's fantastic. Now, obviously, in the esteemed career, your journey, there's lots of little nuggets you've picked up. But one of the bits that we wanted to help is the students. And what do you think? What sort of advice would you give to a student who's interested in pursuing a high octane or charged up buzzing future? What career advice or what support would you advise them to help them follow the same sort of career path?
Well, from my vantage point, I love working with students. Okay, I've made it a point to have students and younger colleagues that I mentored in every job. And what I would say to them is, one, if you're passionate about it, hold on to the passion and seek as much information as you can. So in my career, when I started off when I was doing aerospace, I was with United Technologies. And then when I moved into automotive, I was with Chrysler Corporation. I was always curious. I wanted to understand how things worked, not just how did the mechanical systems and the technologies work, but I also wanted to understand how how the process worked. How did you go through decisions? Who were the people that needed to be in the room to make something happen? What was the process to go from an idea into production? I was always curious. And what I found is that most of the time, executives, leaders, coaches, mentors value that curiosity in young people. So find those people, be curious, continue to ask questions, and never let anyone quell your curiosity. If someone shuts you down, then they weren't the right person. Find the next person and continue to explore with them. And each time, someone will give you something new. Even the mechanics and the janitors teach you lessons. In some cases, they taught me better lessons than the executives did.
That's great advice. And it's incredible to see how your mindset was that way throughout. Now, could you break down how you actually got to where you are? So you started in this environment which was maybe not the best, and you've now got to being the leader of a major OEM disrupting the automotive luxury sector. Can you tell me a little bit more about that journey?
When I made the comment about never giving up, okay, and never letting anybody tell you that you can't. When I first interviewed for my job at Chrysler, I told the interviewer then that I wanted to ultimately become the CEO of a car company, and he laughed and said it doesn't really work like that. And he admired the fact that I was ambitious, but he said, in the real world, that's not how things work. I had the vision of being a CEO of a car company since I was 17 or 18 years old. Okay, so like I said, I was New York City. My grandmother lived in Harlem. We lived in Queens. Didn't come from money. Wasn't in the proper automotive industry at all. It was just something that I thought could be really cool, and I thought that I could make a difference in a community that otherwise didn't have executives that looked like me. So every job that I've taken in my career has been to move me closer to the goal of having the job that I have now. So I've spent the past 27 years just walking a path to get here and trying to follow every step that I could until I made it a reality. So I think, for me, I didn't quit. I didn't let anybody tell me no, or the several times that people did tell me no, I reset myself and went back after it. And I hope that other people can see that in my life journey and know that they can do the same or better in theirs.
I couldn't agree more. That makes so much sense. And it's that constantly, the consistency is key. Now, one simple sentence of advice that if you could go back into time in that DeLorean and give yourself when you're younger back at school, what would that single nugget be?
Well, if I were to give myself one piece of advice back in time, it would be never be afraid to fail. So to expound on it a little bit, a lot of times we have audacious ideas in our mind. Don't chase those audacious ideas because we think that they are too big or too bold, or someone tells you that you can't do it, or that you're not the right person, or you don't meet the right profile, or whatever the case may be. And frankly, all of those people, and even yourself, anyone who tells you that you can't is wrong. As long as you have it in your mind that you can do it, and that failure is a part of the journey, then you can succeed. So that would be my one piece of advice.
That's great advice, Doc. And so the last question I love to ask is, what skill would you love to learn next to advance your career?
So for me, it's a little different, right? So I sit as the chief executive of a company. So the skill that's most valuable to me in my career next is really balancing the needs of an internal organization with the needs of an external marketplace. So I've had some experiences with that throughout my career, but I've had quite a bit of experience with that throughout my career. But really being a master of that balance is the thing that I am working on now for myself, and hopefully permeating into my team.
And so one more question, actually, as a CEO to CEO, what advice would you give to a startup in a far earlier stage?
Well, if I was speaking to a startup in an earlier stage, I would say that have very clear goals and milestones. Understand what the value of that milestone is, both to your enterprise, to your investor community, and to the broader market, and then chase after those milestones with absolute vigor. So it doesn't, the reaching of the milestone does not have to be perfect. There's the old adage, right? That perfection is the enemy of progress. But you need to understand what constitutes value, what are the minimum requirements for that value to be recognized, and then hit those milestones with absolute vigor. Do not miss.
Thank you so much for that. That's incredibly insightful, Marcus. And I hope you all who are listening back to this really enjoy and take the time to rewatch some of this. There's some really key nuggets. And I'd like to thank you again for your time and appreciate joining us and appreciate the time. So thank you and look forward to seeing you in the next show.